That's why I went from Democrat to Republican, because I too was once upon a time an idiot. You know, Trump said it really well. He said, Joe Biden started losing his mind. Kamala Harris, she was born that way. She was born that way.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. Okay? She was born that way.
First off, let's talk about the messaging. While Donald Trump and others are hammering home the issue that actually matters to Americans, like the economy, rebuilding what has been broken in the last 4 years, Harris is busy trying to distract us with super shallow optics, like This Week and her team is doing a media blitz to try to appeal to the male voter base, and specifically the black male voter base.
After hiding Harris all fall, Democrats watched her numbers drop. It was time to change strategy. Obama ordered Kamala, "You're doing a media blitz." But Harris couldn't handle the pressure. She couldn't even survive The View.
If anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
They even have Tampon Tim, No Balls Walls, going out there trying to do a hunting trip. Again, more optics in Detroit to try to sway more men. And the reason why they are focused on this particular demographic group, it's quite simple. It's really quite simple. And it's the fact that that is the one voter base that is slipping away from the grasp of the Democratic Party. And I'm not just saying Kamala Harris. I'm talking about collectively the Democratic Party.
Who you voting for?
Trump.
Come on, bro. Harris tells backwards, bro.
What?
Harris.
Man, we not voting for that, man. We voting for Trump, man.
Since Obama has been in office, Obama, who has paved and led the way to what has become the most polarized version of the United States that it has ever been since, really ever. Since the beginning of the feminist movement in the 60s.
Barack Obama was not a departure from George Bush. He was a continuation of George Bush. He took us from 2 wars to 7 wars. He kicked 5.1 million families out of their homes while he made sure the bankers didn't miss their bonuses. He deported twice as many Hispanics as Donald Trump. He built those cages that put those people in. He dropped 26,000 bombs. The Air Force ran out of bombs. That's a fact. They ran out of bombs. He dropped so many bombs. He did a drone program that killed 90% innocent people. You know, if somebody walks into a mall and shoots 15 people down with this gun, that's the biggest thing. Oh my God. Barack Obama was doing that on a daily basis, killing women and children with his drone war. And he got a Nobel Peace Prize. He got a Nobel Peace Prize. He didn't even do anything.
The Democrats have walked their way into what is now an abysmal showing of support from Democratic men, and particularly the masculine ones. That's why Harris is out there trying to do these optic videos with, I think in the next day or two, on Tuesday, I believe she's going to do another special with The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne. And recently, Charlemagne was on video sharing the fact that there is a reason why Americans are identifying with Donald Trump. And it's not because they are sexist towards Kamala Harris. It's not because men are inherently, against a woman being a president. It's not. It's the fact that, and it is simply the fact that Harris is incredibly unrelatable.
But when you hear the narrator say Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners, that one line, I was like, hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
I definitely see that. She did
that ad was effective. She supports funding gender transition surgeries for all prison inmates and migrants in the United States. That ad was impactful.
You can't relate to this woman. She is so far out of touch with the American people, the American struggle, everything. Her response to Helene, her response to Milton, abysmal. We have more money going to other countries than men who work really hard to have given really the people in power the opportunity to hand all that money over to these other countries. And by way of our hard-earned, hard-worked tax dollars. Those tax dollars are supposed to speak to the American people, but they're not. And it's really sad. And that goes to highlight how Kamala Harris is simply not in touch with the American people at all, whatsoever. Americans aren't buying this. So Tim Walz on his little hunting trip, they're acting like and parading around with a gun, and they think that this optics is going to reverse the years of policies, the many years of policies that have degraded and walked back a lot of the ground that the Second Amendment supporters are in favor of, which is why they are doing a media blitz with the voter bases, the black voter base, the Hispanic voter base, this hunting trip. Now Kamala's desperate attempt to appeal to the male voters by getting on Charlemagne's show. You see, they've demonized men all these years, and they've been calling it toxic masculinity all this time, at every point and at every turn. And now they expect these same voters to turn around and support her. How would they want to support a woman who's been dialing back on issues that men in this country stand for? People aren't falling for it, is simply what I'm saying. And the polls show it. Trump is leading by double digits among men across the board and is beating Harris. And the Harris camp, the Harris campaign, they can't figure out why, which is really kind of comical. In classic Democratic form, it's all about the giveaways, right? She promises all these things and all these things. Like, she's going to tax the rich. She's going to tax large corporations. Let me tell you something. When you tax large corporations, it's the little guys. It's the dudes, the families, the men and women in the middle class and the lower class that will be suffering the most. Why? Because they're rich. Actually, they don't have W-2s. The rich stay rich through their investments. It's the suckers like us who get the SHIT end of the stick. Because when larger corporations, the people at top, when they get taxed, all they'll do is cut jobs downstream to make sure that in their budget meeting, it still shows them having a net positive. As long as their bank accounts aren't being infringed, then all the people below them, they can go. There goes all the layoffs. There goes your taxing the rich plan. And you see, Kamala Harris doesn't actually understand economics. I'm no economist, but it seems pretty obvious. Even at my job, when there are less people to service, then they need less workers. They'll say, "Hey, Joe, we don't need you in today. Hey, Amy, we're calling you off because we don't have enough work for the day." That's what happens. The rich, they're chilling. But Kamala Harris doesn't understand this. And even when Bill Whitaker, in a recent interview, asked her, "How are you going to do this?" she turns around and she says, "Well, we're just going to have to." How can you have to? How, Kamala? How can you do that when the Senate is being led by Republicans? Your retarded bill or proposal is DOA, dead on arrival, nowhere. So you telling Bill in that 60-minute interview that you are going to, oh, well, they have to. The rich have to. They have to pay their fair share. That goes nowhere. You imbecile. All these promises, it's just a substitute for actual solutions. You see, Kamala Harris is hoping and praying that the voter base that she is after is stupid enough to fall for it. She is banking that people are emotionally triggered versus intellectually triggered by feelings versus facts. Because when you get down to the facts, she's an absolute degenerate nincompoop. She has no idea what she's doing. We all know that neither her, cackling Kamala, or Dementia Joe was ever behind any pushing of any real policy. All of those policies that were pushed was pushed by the donor class and the elite bankers who walk around in briefcases and tell her, this is exactly what you're doing. This is the bill that you will actually put into policy. This is what you're signing into law. So she is banking that her voters don't know any of this. That's why I went from Democrat to Republican, because I too was once upon a time an idiot. I thought that by voting for people who sided with my feelings would do me any good. Now, you see, I ended up buying a house back in 2019, and I started a family and all these things, and I came to realization that, holy crap, the Democratic Party, put very simply, they are for losers, outright losers. As an immigrant, it's often said by immigrants that your barometer for success is when you become a Republican. That's right. Even immigrants know that once you turn Republican, that's kind of when you start to do good for yourself financially. Let's be clear about that. So it's really quite amazing that the Democrats are in a frenzy and a little worried 3 weeks before the election, because the projection, even in poly markets, in the betting markets, where there is money on the line, Trump is a favorite. You see, people with real money are betting that Trump is taking the cake. You know, people are tired of these false handouts. The real issue is affordability, jobs, and leadership. It's the fact that people tend to follow leaders and she has no leadership qualities. 9 out of 10 people are followers, so naturally 1 out of 10 people are leaders. But what they don't tell you is that those 9 out of 10 who are followers actually seek deeply to follow a good leader. And they're not going to find that in Kamala Harris. Again, not because she's a woman, but because she's Kamala Harris. You know, Trump said it really well. He said, Joe Biden started losing his mind. Kamala Harris, she was born that way. She was born that way. Something is wrong. Something is wrong with this woman. She's got no substance, nothing substantive to add. Now you compare her to Trump. The difference in perceived strength and in vision for the country, God, it is stark. There's a huge difference. And she's not losing because she's a woman. She's losing because she is simply out of touch with her voter base and the majority of Americans.